What's stopping them from doing this to you? And if you think being white is the shield that you have, you are wrong. It is nutty. This is just the way to open the door to normalizing destruction of due process. A judge was arrested for allegedly helping undocumented immigrant evade arrest. Let's take a look at what took place. The FBI has arrested Judge Hannah Dugan over allegedly helping an undocumented immigrant evade arrest.
Breaking news, the FBI has just arrested a Milwaukee judge accused of trying to help a man evade immigration authorities. In a now deleted post on X, the FBI director writes that Judge Hannah Dugan intentionally misdirected agents. ABC News Justice reporter Alex Mallon has the details. Alex, what do we know so far?
Well, we don't know why the FBI director deleted that post, but we do know from our affiliate in Wisconsin that Judge Hannah Dugan did make her initial appearance this morning. She was charged with 2 federal crimes. That includes concealing a person from discovery and arrest, and the second count is obstruction of federal proceedings. She appeared, her attorney in that court proceeding said that, quote, Judge Dugan wholeheartedly protests the arrest, and the judge ended up actually ordering her released after that hearing. We expect that she will plead not guilty to those charges. But this is a dramatic escalation, obviously, of the Trump administration's, war with the judiciary. They have been previewing the possibility that they would seek charges against any judge or federal officer or even state officers who they say obstruct lawful deportation efforts by this administration. But obviously, this is a dramatic escalation of that. And they detail this. We just got these court charges that were unsealed. Basically, on April 18th, they say that Judge Dugan had an undocumented immigrant set to appear before her in court, and they allege that she helped facilitate him evading ICE officers who were present and ready to arrest him at that court. They say that they were actually able to later arrest him on the street, that he fled them. But now they are bringing those charges, saying that they're formally accusing this judge of trying to help this undocumented immigrant who was charged, facing state charges of assault and battery, and was appearing before her at that time on April 18th. So obviously, we're going to watch the developments. This is going to be a very contentious and closely watched case as we see this administration really take head on this idea that they say that state officials are seeking to obstruct their federal efforts to crack down on illegal immigration.
But first, a Wisconsin judge under arrest and facing charges accused of flouting federal law to help an illegal immigrant. Federal prosecutors say
States' rights, by the way. Yep. Nope. The Guardian reported that the Trump administration reinstated family detention policy in March 2025 with at least 100 migrant families being detained at the Carnes and Dilley detention centers in Texas, including children as young as 1 year old. This is yet another, by the way, she was literally protecting them from a warrantless arrest, detention, and deportation without due process, as a judge should do. This is yet another instance where the Trump administration is directly putting the crosshairs on the judiciary, on the power that judges have. And also, once again, I told you so's are important to maintain here. This is why you should pay close attention when I speak about certain things like this in terms of how the public's attitude will move. Generic ballot, Democrats 47, Republicans 44, hardly into wave territory yet, but suggestive that an environment is beginning to change. A D+3 a year is already a 5-point shift from 2024's congressional result. And immigration is one of his worst issues. Okay? Do you approve or disapprove of the way that Donald Trump is handling immigration? At 51%, immigration is now unpopular. What happened? It was so popular before. Well, what happened is Gilmar Abrego Garcia happened. And it's a minus 21% net approval rating, which means this is his least popular issue. Why is this his least popular issue? Because it's the one that the Americans have been screaming about, that got enough Democrats to actually do something about it, that got the media to cover it, and now more Americans are becoming aware of this unjustifiable immigrant deportation agenda. This is what I kept saying over and over again. The more you put the bead on certain issues, the more Democrats actually go out and protest these things, the more you protest, the more Democrats will actually be asked to do anything about it. And the more Democrats actually do something about it, the more the public will be knowledgeable on this process because the media will finally cover it. And here we are. That's why I always say just looking at approval ratings simply will tell you what Americans are paying attention to and what they're not paying attention to. Do you understand? It doesn't say anything else. Americans don't know the impact of the policies that they push for. Why is genocide not a part of the questions? I mean, it's foreign conflicts. And the reason why Israel is not a part of the question is because this is a New York Times poll. Let's be real. The New York Times is probably the worst newspaper on Israel. It's probably one of the worst legacy publishers on the issue of Israel. Having said that, however, there's additional polls on Israel. Here it is, Data for Progress poll from 4/9 till 4/14. Which approach to the Israel-Palestine conflict do you prefer, even if neither is exactly right? Among Democrats, the U.S. should restrict military aid to Israel until it stops attacking on civilians in Gaza, supports Palestinian rights, and commits to a long-term peace process. The U.S. should continue military aid to Israel and support its right to defend itself, while encouraging efforts to reduce civilian harm and promote long-term peace. Literally 71% say they should restrict military aid to Israel. Under the age of 45, 80% say this. Even among moderates, 62% say that they should restrict military aid. This is as close you can get to a non-issue. Okay? Why is this attitude not reflected among Dem leaders? They love the polls, I thought, because they don't love the polls. They don't. They turn a blind eye to those polls because they are too afraid of coming out against Israel. That's just the reality of it, okay? This is one of the most undemocratic positions within either party, because I'm willing to bet that even amongst the Republican base, these numbers are obviously not going to be as slanted in one direction, but there's majority support. It says net 51 plus, but in what world was the Palestinian support side 21 plus? Wait, what? 21%? No, what are you talking about? It's a net 51 approval rating. That is an insanely popular position to take. They're saying 71% want this and only 20% want the other side. I've been saying this for months, by the way, because these polls are not new. This attitude is not new. And this attitude, in terms of a complete arms embargo to Israel, has been a prominent fixture of American politics for the past year and a half. And yet, while the election was happening, everyone was aware that this was a very popular position. And yet the Democrats did nothing about it because they wanted the baby murder to continue. Okay? And they were willing to throw away the election to a fascist, incompetent monster to allow Israel to continue doing its unlimited baby murder. Make no mistake. This is something that is completely unforgivable. Okay? Completely and utterly unforgivable. So whenever you see the Trump administration taking action such as this one against judges, for example, and someone tries to tell you like, whoa, what about Kamala Harris? She wouldn't do this. It's like, yeah, except Kamala Harris is more responsible for this than you are, than anyone else is, because she would not look at a 70-30 issue and say, I'm in support of the 70% because she wanted the genocide to continue. And she was willing to throw American democracy, or what remains of American theoretical democracy, under the bus.
Milwaukee County Circuit Court Judge Hannah Dugan allegedly helped that migrant avoid arrest by ICE officers at the courthouse. It's a bizarre case and it's still unfolding. Hello, I'm John Roberts in Washington. Sandra, good to see you back again.
All right. Good to be back with you as well, John. I'm Sandra Smith in New York, and this is America Reports. So today's arrest of a judge marks the second such case in the last 24 hours. A former New Mexico judge and his wife were taken into custody yesterday. Federal agents arresting them for harboring a suspected Tren de Aragua gang member in their guest house.
For more on all of this, we are honored to have in the new U.S. Attorney General, Pam Bondi. It's good to talk to you, Pam.
Good to talk to you.
So let me read a little bit from the criminal complaint here. And Judge Dugan says, despite having been advised of the administrative warrant for the arrest of Flores Ruiz, Judge Dugan then escorted Flores Ruiz and his counsel out of the courtroom through the jury door, which leads to a non-public area of the courthouse. A foot chase ensued. The agents pursued Flores Ruiz for the entire length of the courthouse and ultimately apprehended him. According to this complaint, Judge Dugan was visibly angry that ICE was there to arrest Flores Ruiz, even tried to kick the deportation agents out of the courthouse.
Yeah, and to set the stage for you and Sandra, this was truly horrific. This guy was in court being prosecuted by a state prosecutor for domestic violence battery. He had beat up two people, a guy and a girl, hit the guy 30 times, knocked him to the ground, choked him, beat up a woman so badly they both had to go to the hospital. And John, you know, it's so rare for victims to want to cooperate. They wanted to cooperate. They were sitting in the courtroom with the state prosecutor. The judge learns that ICE was outside to get the guy because he had been deported in 2013, came back in our country, commits these crimes, charged with committing these crimes, victims in court. Judge finds out. She goes out in the hallway, screams at the immigration officers. She's furious, visibly shaken, upset, sends them off to talk to the chief judge. She comes back in the courtroom. You're not going to believe this. Takes the defendant and the defense attorney back in her chambers, takes them out a private exit and tells them to leave. While a state prosecutor and victims of domestic violence are sitting in the courtroom.
Wow.
You know, Madam Attorney General, great to have you here, and thanks for coming back on America Report. So we remember these.
What is insane about this story is that the current Attorney General, Pam Bondi, is complaining about due process taking place. Because if this person is convicted, okay, and deportation is seen as a necessity, then that's what's going to happen. But they don't want to wait for the court process to take place. This is, no matter how much they try to hyper focus on the details of this court case, make no mistake. This is not about the depravity of the criminal immigrant. This is about the depravity of the administrative state, the depravity of the Attorney General for revoking due process. This is not an argument about domestic violence and protecting violent abusers. This is an argument about undermining due process. That's why she is currently locked up. It is psychotic. Everything Bondi said is false. The judge never hid them. Seeing claims about the judge hiding the defendant. Read the complaint, folks. Written by the DOJ, by the way. The guy was literally in the public area where agents were. I guess he got in an elevator before they could get to him. The complaint says, after letting the defendant exit, she came back to the bench. After leaving Chief Judge's vestibule and returning to the public hallway, DEA Agent A reported that Flores Ruiz and his attorney were in the public hallway. DEA Agent B was also observed Flores Ruiz and his attorney in the hallway near courtroom 615 and noted that Flores Ruiz was looking around the hallway. From different vantage points, both agents observed Flores Ruiz and his counsel walk briskly towards the elevator bank at the south end of the 6th floor. I am familiar with the layout of the 6th floor of the courthouse and know that the south elevators are not the closest elevators to courtroom 615. Therefore, it appears that Flores Ruiz and his counsel elected not to use the closest elevator bank to courtroom 615. DEA Agent A followed Flores Ruiz and his attorney towards the south elevator bank. At approximately 8:50 a.m., DEA Agent A alerted other members of the arrest team that DEA Agent A was on the elevator with Flores Ruiz. While on the elevator, Flores Ruiz and his attorney spoke to each other in Spanish. Here, Jason Palladino posted the relevant section of the complaint against Judge Dugan, who was alleged to have led a man into a jury exit to briefly avoid arrest by ICE, DEA, and FBI agents in the hallway. Judge Dugan learns of ICE's presence and confronts members of the arrest team. Witnesses have described Judge Dugan's response to learning of ICE's presence. For example, the courtroom deputy indicated that when Flores Ruiz arrived, Judge Dugan already was on the bench and conducting proceedings unrelated to Flores Ruiz's matter. The courtroom deputy observed Attorney A, the individual who had photographed the agents, enter and approach Judge Dugan's clerk. Attorney A stated that there appeared to be ICE agents in the hallway. Attorney A told the clerk where the agents were seated and what they were wearing. The courtroom deputy reported that the clerk then got up and talked with Judge Dugan. Judge Dugan became visibly angry, commented that the situation was absurd, left the bench, and entered chambers. At the time, Flores Ruiz was seated in the gallery of the courtroom. Another individual, Attorney B, was working as an assistant district attorney in Judge Dugan's courtroom, April 18th, 2025. According to Attorney B, there were approximately 8 criminal cases, including Flores Ruiz's case, scheduled for pretrial hearings that morning. Attorney B was aware that the victims from Flores Ruiz's criminal case were in the court. While Attorney B was busy preparing for that morning's docket, Attorney B heard someone announce ICE is here. Shortly thereafter, Attorney B heard Judge Dugan say that she was going to call the chief judge before leaving the courtroom. Members of the arrest team reported the following events after Judge Dugan learned of their presence and left the bench. Hassan, there's no trilled R in Ruiz. I don't think so either, but people were saying, say Ruiz by rolling your R's. And Judge A, who were both wearing judicial robes, approached members of the arrest team in the public hallway. Judge A's courtroom is located adjacent to Judge Dugan's courtroom. Witnesses uniformly reported that Judge Dugan was visibly upset and had a confrontational, angry demeanor. Judge Dugan addressed Deportation Officer A and asked if Deportation Officer A was present for a court appearance. When Deportation Officer A responded no, Judge Dugan stated that Deportation A would need to leave the courthouse. Deportation Officer A stated that Deportation Officer A was there to effectuate an arrest. Judge Dugan asked if he had a judicial warrant. And Deportation A officer responded, no, I have an administrative warrant. Judge Dugan stated that he needed a judicial warrant. He then told Judge Dugan that he was in a public space and had a valid immigration warrant. Judge Dugan, efendim, ikide yapmaya başlarsan yerim. Eyvallah. Judge Dugan asked to see the administrative warrant, and Deportation Officer A offered to show it to her. Judge Dugan then demanded that Deportation Officer speak with, you roll single R's when the R begins the word. Okay. Whatever. Shut up. This is not the point. Just lock in, Chad. Judge Dugan then demanded that Deportation Officer A speak with Chief Judge. Judge Dugan then had a similar interaction with FBI Agent B and CBP Officer A. Customs and Border Patrol and FBI were there as well. After finding out that they were not present for a court appearance, that they were with ICE, Judge Dugan ordered them to report to the Chief Judge's office. Judge A then escorted members of the arrest team away from courtroom 615 down the hall through a set of double doors towards the reception area for the Chief Judge's office. DA Agent B, who was not recognized by Judge Dugan and Judge A was being part of the arrest team, remained behind in the courtroom. The courtroom deputy reported observing a portion of the above described events in the hallway. According to the courtroom deputy, shortly after Judge Dugan was advised of ICE's presence, the courtroom deputy left the courtroom to look for an unrelated defendant, whom the courtroom deputy was seeking to arrest for an open warrant. The courtroom deputy saw Judge Dugan in her robe in the public hallway telling one of the federal agents that he needed to go talk to Chief Judge. I need you to understand something. A judge, especially in the process of inside of a courtroom, a judge is the god, okay? Like a judge is quite literally the judge, jury, and executioner. So when a judge says, no, you have no authority here, do you have a judicial warrant, okay? And he says, no, I don't have a judicial warrant. And then the judge says, you need to get the f out of my courtroom. You need to get the f out of that courtroom. That judge could have actually unironically arrested those people that are in that courtroom and held them in contempt of the court for not following a lawful order being made in that process. She could have arrested them if she wanted to. Okay? This is something that even the Supreme Court is most likely not going to abide by because it destroys any power that the judiciary has. Okay? It's over. The judge has no power if a random dickhead can decide to do this. They weren't in the courtroom, they were in the hallway, I think. Regardless, this is the this is an incredibly important part of the separation of power, okay? You cannot have the executive authority undermine the judiciary. It is kind of the whole reason for why the judiciary exists, okay? You are inside of a courthouse, especially. You should not be violating the lawful orders or the determinations being made by the judge outside of the courthouse either, technically, okay? Under normal circumstances, when the judge says, hey, we're going to go through due process with this person, you can't just be like, nah, I don't care. Like, there's jurisdiction here, and it is in the hands of the judge. Yeah, judiciary is literally there to prevent executive from determining what law is. That's the whole point. And I think a lot of people don't understand what the Constitution is there to do. The Constitution is not there to limit your freedoms as a regular citizen or non-citizen on U.S. soil. The Constitution is there to regulate and limit the power of the government from doing like this, doing literally like this. That is the entire reason for why this exists. Anyway, you're wrong on many levels. Judges can't just walk hallways involving themselves in everything they see. It is her own personal court case. It's literally due process taking place. You can't just go, nah, sorry, I've decided that there is no due process in this circumstance. He wasn't. It's not even a he, it's a she. He was talking about, my bad, he was talking about the agent. Brother, I work in a federal courthouse. Judges absolutely have full reign of the place. That chatter is insane. Yeah. By the way, judges don't just have full reign over the courthouse. They have full reign in general. Like, we're not even talking about that. That's the, like, what do you think a judge's purpose is? To just sit there and bang a gavel? Like, what are you talking about? No, I'm just saying, like, within the halls of a courthouse, in the courthouse, they are the god, okay? They're functionally the god. They're the judge, the jury, and the executioner in general, okay? But outside of the courthouse, they have a lot of powers as well. I'm not talking about in their own personal life. I'm talking like when they make a decision that is supposed to limit the enforcement actions by other members of law enforcement. Like, for example, I'll give you a great example of this. Court process takes place, okay? There's a court proceeding. There's a court proceeding. There's a criminal trial, okay? And the judge adjudicates at the end of the process. The person, let's say the defendant, is found to be not guilty. You can't just go up to that person once he leaves the courthouse and go, I don't care. I still think you're guilty. You're going to jail anyway. Do you understand? Can you comprehend how this would undermine everything that is... This would undermine the entire structure of the judiciary to begin with. Like, the judge says, yes, we found you not guilty, bangs the gavel. You think you're walking out a free man. And then some cop is waiting outside going, no, I still think you're illegal. I still think you're a criminal. Boom, back to prison with you. You can't do that. And the only way you could do that is if there is a separate criminal warrant for yourself, okay? For a totally separate case. In this circumstance, him saying he has an administrative warrant is not applicable. There is a actual active court case taking place over whether or not this person is responsible for what he was charged with. And then in the aftermath of that, then you will make a determination for deportation orders. But you can't just decide, process, we're just deporting you. Sorry, we're going to deport you expeditiously. Like, this is crazy. This is not even lack of due process. It's giving due process and defying the outcome. That's ridiculous. DA Agent B, who had remained in the hallway and had not been recognized as a member of the arrest team, reported that Judge Dugan walked around the hallway and appeared to be looking for additional agents before she returned to the courtroom. Once inside the office of the chief judge, the deportation officer A showed Judge A his credentials and the administrative warrant. Judge A asked the chief judge's clerk to make a copy of the warrant and asked whether the chief judge was available. The clerk advised that the chief judge was not in the building, but later advised that he was on the phone. At that point, Judge A left, and deportation officer A went inside a more private area of the chief judge's office to speak with him on the phone. During that conversation, chief judge stated he was working on a policy which would dictate locations within the courthouse where ICE could safely conduct enforcement operations. The chief judge emphasized that such actions should not take place in courtrooms or other private locations within the building. Deportation officer A asked about whether enforcement actions could take place in the hallway. Chief judge indicated that hallways are public areas. When the chief judge expressed interest in talking to ICE ERO management about this policy, deportation officer A provided him with the contact information. While deportation officer A was speaking with Chief Judge, DA Agent A, CBP Officer A, and FBI agents A and B waited in the vestibule area outside of the chief judge's office. DA Agent A departed that area. After a short while, Judge Dugan's courtroom deputy then approached the remaining arrest team members and stated the courtroom deputy was the one who had notified Judge Dugan about their arrest plans. Courtroom deputy was also made a comment about Judge Dugan pushing Flores Ruiz's cases through, which the arrest team interpreted to mean Judge Dugan was attempting to expedite Flores Ruiz's hearing. Judge Dugan escorts Flores Ruiz through a jury door to avoid his arrest. As in, she wants to conduct the court proceedings on this person. This doesn't mean that she is going to find him not guilty. It just means she recognizes that ICE is waiting to literally grab this dude, kidnap this dude, okay, without due process taking place. So she goes, let's expedite this process. Let's expedite this process so that we can figure out if he is actually guilty or not. That is crazy that they arrested her for doing this. What? You dumb? For example, the courtroom deputy recalled that upon the courtroom deputy's return to the courtroom, defense counsel for Flores Ruiz was talking to the clerk, and Flores Ruiz was seated in the jury box rather than in the gallery. The courtroom deputy believed that counsel and the clerk were having an off-the-record conversation to pick the next court date. Defense counsel and Flores Ruiz then walked towards each other and toward the public courtroom exit. The courtroom deputy then saw Judge Dugan get up and heard Judge Dugan say something like, "Wait, come with me." Despite having been advised of the administrative warrant for the arrest of Flores Ruiz, Judge Dugan then escorted Flores Ruiz and his counsel out of the courtroom through the jury door, which leads to a non-public area of the courthouse. These events were also unusual for two reasons. First, courtroom deputy had previously heard Judge Dugan direct people not to sit in the jury box because it was exclusive for the jury's use. Second, according to the courtroom deputy, only deputies, juries, court staff, and in-custody defendants being escorted by deputies used the back jury door. Defense attorneys and defendants who were not in custody never used the jury door. We all know why this took place. This took place so that the judge could actually protect due process on principle. That's it. They are mad. They're mad and they're claiming that this person is a violent criminal and the judge protected this violent criminal. Before the conviction comes through, technically, he is not a violent criminal. He might be. I'm not saying he's not, but it doesn't matter because what this judge is doing in this process is not defending a violent criminal. It's defending due process. It's making sure that the court process goes through. And before people say, what was he accused of? It doesn't matter. Okay? It does not matter. Especially considering that if he was accused of a heinous crime, for example, and there was enough threat for him to be walking out in public, then the judge would have made a separate determination to hold him instead of allowing him to walk free anyway. Basics of judicial immunity. Absolute immunity, when recognized as absolute, is absolute and means judges are not liable in civil actions for their judicial acts, even when done maliciously and corruptly. The law is clear that in general, no action can be supported against the judge or justice of the peace acting judicially and within the sphere of his jurisdiction, however erroneous his decision or malicious the motive imputed to him. For example, it reminds me of that one judge that was sending little children to little children jail because he illegally had set up a pay per child scheme. And ironically enough, Joe Biden actually commuted his sentence on his way out. He pardoned that judge. Okay? Only after the court proceedings are done and a separate investigation is concluded, and then on top of that, this person is found guilty of wrongdoing, can that person be, sent to prison? You can't, in the process, decide, that judge, what you're doing is abhorrent, illegal, immoral. I agree, but you can't just in the process go, sorry, what you're doing is abhorrent. You're going to, we're arresting you while you're making this determination to send children to jail for no other reason than the fact that you are getting paid to do so. Judges and judicial officers have always been awarded absolute immunity for their judicial acts. Absolute immunity covers even when conduct which is corrupt, malicious, or intended to do injury. And in this process, what this judge was doing wasn't even corrupt or immoral, for the record. Yeah, the Cash for Kids judge. This is what I was talking about. Biden's commutation in Kids for Cash scandal angers some Pennsylvania families. Beg your finest pardon. Okay, we're not going to get into a totally separate. We're not going to get into this totally separate case. Okay, a victim witness specialist employed by the Milwaukee County District Attorney's Office was present in courtroom 615. The VWS made contact with the victims in Flores Ruiz's criminal case, who were also in court. The VWS was able to identify Flores Ruiz based upon the victim's reactions to the presence in the court. Dugan's gesture towards Flores Ruiz and an unknown Hispanic woman. The VWS stated that she believed the Hispanic woman may have been an interpreter. However, based on the VWS's description of the woman and other witness statements, I believe the Hispanic woman to which the VWS referred to as Flores Ruiz's attorney. The VWS stated that Judge Dugan then exited through the jury door with Flores Ruiz and the Hispanic woman. The VWS was concerned because Flores Ruiz's case had not yet been called and the victims were waiting. Another attorney C, who was in courtroom 615 on April 18, 2025, to represent a client, also advised case agents that he observed Judge Dugan forcefully direct two individuals, a man and a woman, to leave through the jury door. Attorney C indicated that this was done with a stern tone. Ruiz makes it out of the courthouse and is arrested after a foot chase. After leaving the chief judge's vestibule and returning to the public hallway, DEA Agent A reported that Flores Ruiz and his attorney were in the public hallway. You want to know something that's so, like, sad and weird about this process, by the way? Like, technically, if he gave chase and he was able to successfully evade the authorities and then somehow made his way back to the next court date, and if found not guilty, like, he would be able to continue being on U.S. soil, ironically enough. And that's kind of what ICE is trying to stop from happening. They just don't want this to happen. They, like, because what the ICE enforcement in this process is in a legal gray area, okay? The reality of the matter is, if you can successfully stop ICE agents from following on an immigrant enforcement action, then yeah, that person is still fine to be here. Like, the difference between, like, for example, I'll give you this example, okay? ICE could not figure out, there was a Korean American legal permanent resident going to Colombia, and ICE tried to nab her while they were going after Mahmoud Khalil. They couldn't find her on campus, okay? And she was able to make her way to a New York court, and because of that, she is not detained. Mahmoud Khalil, on the other hand, could not evade the ICE agents, and that's the reason why he is currently in a Louisiana detention facility. And considering that this administration has already gone back on revoking the immigration status of thousands of students because they just had no merit. Like, there's this totally meritless revocations. It's literally about abiding your time until, you know, the admin realizes that they can't get away with it. It's really, it is no different than, at least at this stage, because we haven't fully gotten to the legalization of these sorts of actions. Like, this is the pre-Nuremberg race laws moment in Weimar, Germany, and not post-Nuremberg race laws moment where it has become officially illegal to be Jewish, right? In many circumstances, if you can just, like, evade the law, because the law is behaving at this stage still in an illegal manner, you can get away with not being disappeared. It is a very strange time. And it's crazy to think because, like, one might say, Hasan, you're telling people how to obstruct justice, and you're urging people to evade the law. But the reality of the matter is, in many of these circumstances, they haven't done anything wrong. And it's actually, as it stands currently, until they change the rules, until new precedents are set, until they change the rules, it is actually the government, the federal agencies that are in violation of the law. It's nutty. The system is so broken. Anyway, this is the situation.
These words of Tom Homan, the border czar. This was March 17th, and his message on these judges who apparently are trying to get in the way of this administration's efforts. Listen.
I'm proud to be a part of this administration. We're not stopping. I don't care what the judges think. I don't care what the left thinks. We're coming.
So when you see these judges trying to obstruct your efforts to make this country safer, what is your message to them?
We are going to prosecute you, and we are prosecuting you. I found out about this the day it happened. We could not believe, actually, that a judge really did that. We looked into the facts in great depth. That's her picture up on the screen, Hannah Dugan, who is now in custody. You cannot obstruct a criminal case, and really, shame on her It was a domestic violence case of all cases, and she's protecting a criminal defendant over victims of crime.
In fact, she just had an initial appearance in court. There's also this other case coming out of New Mexico. Judge Joel Cano and his wife were arrested for harboring a TDA member at their home. The alleged TDA member had been picked up by law enforcement, and now he and his wife were picked up and arrested. And you say that you believe, as the Attorney General, that the person that they were having living at their home was a truly potentially bad individual.
Yeah, that's the judge up on the screen now who got arrested. Yeah, his name is Ortega. He was is a known TDA member. So he comes through Eagle Pass January.
Okay, this is the other part of this process, which is like, he's a known TDA member. First and foremost, just like with Israel, when I hear this administration blame someone for being a Tren de Aragua member, okay, I'm going to be a little skeptical about it. I'm sorry. You have lost the power that you should have had as an institution when you shipped off 90% innocent people to CCOT. Okay, if what is happening here in terms of the determination for what constitutes a known Tren de Aragua member is simply someone having a autism awareness tattoo, it's going to be very difficult for me. I'm going to need to see some real evidence. Having said that, the irony here is this determination is not up to the Attorney General, Pam Bondi. This determination needs to happen in a court of law, in a courtroom. That's the whole point. Because when you say someone is a violent gang member and we've made a determination that this gang is not even a gang, but it's actually a terror cell, we're going to disappear that person. There is no more room for a due process. The entire argument right now is around due process. I'm not saying keep every single person inside of the American borders, inside of the American national boundaries. I'm simply saying that we have to make this determination of the courtroom, because if we just destroy due process in its entirety, today it's going to be random brown guy. Tomorrow it's going to be another person that is an American citizen. And you can't even make this determination any longer because we've eroded the Constitution and there's no more process. This is very dangerous.
December 2023. He's living in our country. January 2025, ICE, they get a tip. Tom Homan's done a great job. Our FBI did a great job on this case, too. They get a tip that he is living with a judge and the judge's wife. So they have him arrested first on immigration charges. A Judge Damian Martinez releases him, saying that Judge Cano has a good BS meter and wouldn't let just anyone live on his property.
Yeah, I mean, when you look at the associations with this violent Venezuelan gang, Tren de Aragua, and this person that they harbored in their home, he was showing signs through clothing, we were told, tattoos. There was evidence through voice messages and text messages.
Bro, it doesn't matter. He could literally be a... What? I know, I see his Modelo time. You got a tall boy. It's 2 p.m., dude. Anyway, Peter said facetiously, these arrests everywhere are all terrorist gang members, right? Where's all the shootouts? Masked, ununiformed nerds approaching you as an international terrorist and they all just lay down their arms? Yeah, exactly. But even then, it doesn't matter. He could be a Nicaragua member. He could be. I'm not even saying he's not. I mean, it's very... I don't believe this administration, okay? They've already destroyed their credibility, what remained of the credibility. There was not much to begin with. But even then... there's a reason for why due process has to take place. That's my point. Because if Pam Bondi decides you're Tren de Aragua and now you're disappearing to CCOT, and that's what matters, that's all it takes for someone to get black bag in the middle of the street, what's stopping them from doing this to you? And if you think being white is the shield that you have, you are wrong. It is nutty. This is just the way to open the door to normalizing destruction of due process. You're such a lib defending institutional norms. Dude, this is not a defense of institutional norms, okay? This is a objectively good thing. It's like saying we have to gut the EPA. Oh my God, you're such a for defending the Environmental Protection Agency or defending the FDA. Yes, there are some things that the goddamn government does that, you know, they could do a better job with, but at least like it should remain, okay? And this isn't even that. This is more than that, because what I'm defending is human rights in general, okay? What I'm defending is like what we have evolved to. And the irony, of course, is that once those... The irony, of course, is if tomorrow, God forbid, we set new precedents and there is no more due process, I wouldn't be sitting there and going, oh my God, well, the law is the law. I would be talking about how immoral this is. I'm using the existing existing shred of legality that remains to make a convincing argument to the liberals that are oblivious to the realities here, okay? This doesn't mean that my support only extends to institutional defense here, and that once it's, you know, once they just say it's whatever they say goes and there's no need for due process, I'm going to sit around and be like, well, the law is the law based. At that point, it is unjustifiable, an unjustifiable rule. At that point, we move beyond, we move to the point where the abolition of slavery is illegal and slavery is legal. That's where morality kicks in. Right now, it is both immoral and illegal for the government to do this kind of stuff. Okay? Tomorrow, God forbid, it could be legal, but still very much immoral for the government to do this stuff. I don't want that to become the norm. I don't want to have to make an argument on just morality alone, especially when this is not only immoral, but it's also illegal. Career officials inside the Trump admin first viewed the case of Mr. Abrego Garcia like any normal case of a wrongful deportation. They began looking for ways to bring him back, as happens whenever ICE makes that mistake. Then the White House got involved and blew it up. Late last month, 3 days after Abrego Garcia's family filed this lawsuit over his deportation, government attorneys began discussing how to undo the mistake and bring him back. In their conversations, officials went so far as to float the idea of having the U.S. ambassador to El Salvador make a personal appeal to the country's president for Abrego Garcia's return. Oh, misdemeanor battery, domestic abuse, infliction of physical pain or injury. The above named defendant on or about did cause bodily harm to DT by an act done with intent to cause bodily harm to that person. I mean, it doesn't matter, because this is not even the main point of contention here. The main point of contention is not to make, like, I'm not in the business of even entertaining whether or not this person is a sympathetic person. It's a misdemeanor. It's most likely under normal circumstances not supposed to warrant a deportation measure, okay? But we're not even there. There's no need to even argue on whether or not this is a sympathetic person or not, because the principle that I'm defending this judge, at the very least, is on the principle of abiding by due process. Like, great, sure, sympathetic figure aside, it does not matter, because what's happening here is a severe violation of what makes the American liberal democracy, in theory, tick. It is separation of powers. It is the power that the judiciary has. Like, this is, you know, this is about more than whether or not this is a sympathetic figure, because tomorrow it could be an unsympathetic figure. It could be a figure that's like a violent serial killer. And in the process of, like, it could be an undocumented migrant that is being charged with being a violent serial killer, right? Due process still needs to take place. Due process still needs to take place. All right, let's get back to Pam.
Of his association to TDA. So what charges will Cano and his wife face, if any?
So Judge Cano, soon to be former Judge Cano, got his charges were just unsealed. He's charged with obstruction. He admitted post Miranda. He took one of the TDA members' cell phones himself, took it, beat it with a hammer, destroyed it, and then walked the pieces to a city dumpster to dispose of it to protect him. The wife also is charged with destroying evidence. Sandra, not only that, this TDA member, and he had on a necklace that said kill, something about death. He had tattoos all over him. He also had on his cell phone pictures of 2 decapitated victims, victims, decapitated, gruesome photos. And he was sending them out, and whoever he was sending them to was sending back saying, hey, you need to be careful. You shouldn't be sending these. You shouldn't be texting these photos out. Not only that, these 2, the judge and his wife, gave him assault rifles that belonged to their daughter. That's what they're charged with. In the criminal report affidavit, he goes to a shooting range with these assault rifles, with a suppressor, with other known TDA members, and they're shooting. This is the last person that we want in our country, nor will we ever tolerate a judge or anyone else harboring them.
Let me, if I could, Madam Attorney General, come back to the Wisconsin case and Judge Hannah Dugan, because in allegedly letting the perpetrator and the attorney out through a non-public exit and allowed them to get out in front of the building, we had a situation where we've seen that I know Tom Homan was complaining about in Colorado, where there would be no transfer of a defendant from a jail to ICE custody on a detainer request in a way that was orderly and protected public safety. They would dump them off in a parking lot, and then ICE would have to chase them around with the DEA or whatever, or FBI, and pick them up. This ended up in a foot chase in public sight. It says here, a foot chase ensued. The agents, and this was a DEA agent and an FBI agent, pursued Flores Ruiz for the entire length of the courthouse, ultimately apprehended him near the intersection of West State Street and 10th Street. So the judge apparently has created a situation here where you have a public foot chase. And we all know that, well, sometimes they can come off without incident. They can also
put a finger down, shooting range, gross tattoos, decapitation pictures on the phone. First of all, I don't believe anything that Pam Bondi is saying. And yet again, as I've maintained this position over and over again, I will continue maintaining this position, okay? Until there is a proper court proceeding, okay, none of that matters. She is not appearing in front of a jury. She is trying to manipulate public opinion. There is a reason why all of this needs to be happening in a court of law in front of a jury. And even in that process, there are still innocents that get thrown into prison. Okay? We have now destroyed. We're like, nah, hearsay is enough. The top cop of the government making these claims in public is enough. Ironically enough, making these claims in public would actually would cause like a convincing defense attorney could just as easily point to this as a way to taint the actual judicial process. This is grounds for a mistrial. But because we are so far removed from that reality at this point, especially as it pertains to talking about migrants and what kind of rights they have, that it doesn't even matter. I can't believe I'm saying this.
Into very dangerous situations.
John, that's exactly right. She put the lives of our law enforcement officers at risk. She put the lives of citizens at risk. A street chase, which is absurd that had to happen. But yes, she put a lot of people in danger. That judge did it. So did the other judge. Judge Cano is charged with. They were allegedly giving him assault rifles, AK-47s, AR-15s, with a suppressor, a known TDA member, letting him go to a shooting range to refine and perfect his shooting skills. What's happened to our judiciary is beyond me.
Yeah, so when the American public hears this and they think these were once upstanding people in their communities and their professions, and they put it all on the line for this, I mean, have you dug into their motive? Like, what inspired them to carry out these acts and harbor criminals?
They're deranged is all I can think of. I cannot believe. I think some of these judges think they are beyond and above the law, and they are not. And we're sending a very strong message today. If you are harboring a fugitive, we don't care who you are. If you are helping hide one, if you are giving a TDA member guns, anyone who is illegally in this country, we will come after you.
Bro, this is literally like, I can smell that you are harboring in the floorboards type, okay? This is straight up Inglorious Bastards Like, oh my God, dude.
You and we will prosecute you. We will find you.
If I could just finish off with this idea, very significant development that you're arresting judges now. Now, it could be that the judges have engaged in terribly bad behavior and deserve to be arrested. But you know what critics will say? They'll say, "Oh, this is a government that is expanding the powers of the Article 1 of the Constitution. Now they're arresting judges." How do you respond to that?
No one is above the law, John. No one is above the law in this country. And if you are destroying evidence, if you are obstructing justice, when you have victims sitting in a courtroom of domestic violence and you're escorting a criminal defendant out a back door, it will not be tolerated, and it is a crime in the United States of America. Doesn't matter who you are, you're going to be prosecuted.
Madam Attorney General, great to see you in the studio.
Great to see you.
Okay,
Appreciate
thank
your
you
time.
very much. Appreciate that.
I'm Steve Ducey.
I'm Brian Kilmeade.
And I'm Ainsley Earhart. And click here to subscribe to the
We are
Grace
so
Extra.
fucked. We have moved on. We are in the dangerous place, dude. We are in a place right now. Holy dude.